the recording now. Okay, can everybody see okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much. This is our FY21 performance management process timeline overview. And again, I want to welcome you all for coming to this meeting so that we can kind of go over what we're going to be doing this year. I do have some new things to share, which we'll talk about later on. Our agenda for today is basically to do the review of the process overview. It's going to be a real high level today, and we're just going to kind of talk about all the different steps that we're going to be going through as we go through the annual performance cycle. We'll be talking about the quarterly milestones. I'm going to also talk about the website updates. I'm going to be giving you guys a demo. I did some pretty big updates, excuse me, on the website, and hopefully it'll help you guys the way that it's going to be laid out now. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about the FY21 PMP Google Calendar. So the first slide is about the overview and the timeline. This is everything that we go through. Some of you folks have gone through this before, and I think we might have some new folks. Usually every year we do have some new folks coming on into this process. So the high level timeline looks pretty daunting, but if you, excuse me, take a look at all the different months, I'm going to break it down for everybody into quarterly months, starting from January through March, and we'll talk about April through June, and then July through August. So as we break that down, this high level timeline is available on the website. So if you want to go ahead and have a copy for yourself, you can keep that for yourself and kind of check in periodically to see where we are at. I'm going to first start with the January through March timeline. This is the time frame where I start to draft the actual timeline. I usually have a meeting with the directorate, and that way I can kind of pin down the time frames for all of the meetings with the ALDs. I start that in January. I found last year I did it in February, and it got very, very tight to get those meetings lined up because the ALDs are some pretty busy people, and Horst and Dr. Witherall also very busy. So we start that really early in the year. So January really is the whole month of timelines. That's all I kind of work on. I'm working with IT, I'm working with HRIS, just to make sure that everything lines up and just corresponds. So we're kind of working it backwards into the January timeframe. Then come February. I sent out, this year I did things a little bit different. I sent out an email notification to the HRDPs concerning a change to confirm our DPOs via the checklist, which is new. We used to have two separate lists in the past where we'd have a DPO list, confirmed DPOs with DPO information. Then we had a separate checklist that we would use to set up the Google application. After we started talking about it, oh, and one thing I forgot to mention about Nina. Nina is also my helper this year. Thank you, Nina, for coming on board with the PMP process. She's also going to be working with me to help with emails and so forth. But Nina had mentioned, why don't you just compile this whole thing into one file? So that's what we ended up doing with the checklist. So there's now a tab that confirms the HR division, the DPOs. So the HRDPs can confirm them there on the checklist, and it's all in one place. So that was something that happened in February last month. The checklists were shared last month with pre-filled data from 2020. And the final date for the HRDPs to confirm the DPOs was at the end of the month. So basically what we'll start doing soon is we'll start sharing the checklists and start getting them updated. Everybody should now have access to them. If not, I will be doing that basically this month. Also, all during this time between January and March, we're doing the PMP website updates, anything that had to be updated, any Google site updates, and then we announced the official timeline, which is the end of March. So we've pretty much got the timeline locked in this year. Last year it got a little bit hairy because I know we had UC Path going on. So there was a lot of uncertainty as to should we tighten it up. And I know towards the end of it, it got a little bit crazy as to, when was the official closeout and so forth. So this year we're hoping to avoid some of those pitfalls. April through May. So that is next month. We're talking about the employee eligibility. Oh, you know what? Let me see if I can back up. Okay, I shared the checklist. I sent the first notification to enter employee status changes in UCPath. That's something that's also I sent out recently on March 16th. So everybody needs to start their status changes. I know I also work in comp, so I've been getting a lot of updates on that, which is good. I'm glad to see people doing that. So that's one thing that's starting, because next month we have to get everything locked in before April 1st. So right now, right here in this spot on March 25th, which I'm delivering the FY21 timeline meeting, we're going to finalize, then we finalize the official timeline. So which actually, to me, it's finalized. So next, the employee eligibility. Anybody who's hired on or before April 1st is eligible for a review. And please remember that anybody eligible for review is also eligible for merit. So the two go hand in hand. You cannot receive a merit unless you have a review and a rating. So that is something right now that we want to keep in mind. So everybody want to update any employee status changes and so forth. We've already shared the checklist pre-filled with the FY21 data. I'll double check again that everybody has access to that, especially the DPOs. We'll be having the roundtable meeting and the PM process training that's going to happen next month. Again, our EPAP deadline, April 16th. So everybody make sure that we get our EPAP, not EPAPs, oops, sorry, I should change that. Didn't get the UCPAP language in there, but anyway, the deadline for any employee status changes need to happen by April 16th. We're going to send, HR needs to send the list of faculty to comp. So any of you folks here that have faculty employees that say your division directors or the managers want them to have a review, I need to get a list of those folks by April 19th. So that way I can send it on to HRIS and to IT. So once I get the list of faculty, HRIS will download a file of eligible employees. That's why we have to make sure that everybody's updated. And then from there, the tracking sheets are shared. The HRIS downloads will create the tracking sheets. Once the tracking sheets are created, then they're shared, and the Google Docs webinar will be delivered at that point. So the official lab-wide launch is going to be June 1st of 2020. And that's when employees need to start working on self-assessments. So if you take a look over here, we're going to be delivering the Google Doc webinar on May 12th, which is a really important webinar. This is how to set up the actual Google application. So if you are a person who is responsible for that, I highly recommend you go to this webinar. Again, what we do have though, is that we will be recording all the sessions. So that's something that's very helpful if you can't make it for some reason. So any questions at this point or?
Yes, I have a question, Pat. It's Latanja.
Thank you, Latanja. Go ahead.
So I don't know if it's going to come up later in your presentation. I didn't remember seeing it on your agenda, but we talked about in our like closeout meetings for last performance management cycle about people who were still in their probationary period or time.
Right.
And I don't see anything listed here. Just wanted to make I think what came up for me was I wanted to know if there's going to be a distinction from who needs to still do a self-assessment if they are, you know, in their still within their probationary time, right? It's like, are they going to be required to do that, or we just
actually it should be once they complete probationary, then you should have a probationary review.
And not have to do a self-assessment? No,
you shouldn't. Because if they're in their probationary period, that means they're still really new to the whole, I mean, unless you have somebody extraordinary, not to say that that can't happen. Somebody comes in there and just blows it away. And I mean, in 3-4 months, they're just awesome. There's, you know, hey, we want to make sure that we recognize them somehow. You still have to do a probationary review at minimum. But those cases are usually, you know, you need to talk to maybe with Marcia. We go on a one case-by-case basis on that. But in general, no, I would not. I would consider them really not eligible at that point. So
to go through the self-assessment and the PMP process.
Right, until the probation period is over. Then once they've completed the probation period, then they can have a probationary review. And if you want to do a mid-year merit or something, then you can go from there.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to Latanja's point to have some consistent timing. of when probationary periods end, and so we can treat them all the same. And I think I have to revisit the Google site, but I think there was some language and guidance around there, but let's revisit that and just make sure that we're being consistent.
Yeah, and then Marcia too, we can maybe work on making sure that we have good clarity on that.
Yes.
So.
Agreed.
Okay.
And I'll show you the new website. When I get to that point, hopefully you guys can help me out with that too, because that's another thing that I think it's kind of a team effort. So then the following month, after we do the launch, let me see if I can back it up again. Previous. Basically, we have our official launch June 1st, and our employee self-assessments are due on June 22nd. We have 3 weeks to complete that. During this time frame here, last year we did some office hours with everybody, and that seemed to be really helpful for some folks. It almost gave you one-on-one time with myself and Luis, and then this year we'll also be with Nina to help figure out some problems. So that's something we're going to add into here, into this time frame, maybe the May and June time frame, and then into other time frames where it starts to get a little bit sticky towards the closeout time frame is another area. So once we come into the mid process to the completion, July, August, and September, the supervisors will have to complete their draft reviews by July 14th. So we've given them 3 weeks to complete draft reviews. Then we'll have our one-up review comments and suggestions. They have 2 weeks that has to be completed by July 29th. And then the hard deadline is between basically July 27th to August 5th, where the divisions need to complete their one-up and have all their calibration meetings. The ALDs will be meeting with Horst and Mike between, I'm going to say August 6th to August 10th. And those meetings will have been set up from the ALD. I believe it was Mike Witherall's admin. Nina will be setting those up. If not, I believe she's already set them up. At that point, I will start running the division aggregates for the proposed rating summaries, which is an aggregate of each division and their layout of the various ratings from the tracking sheets that I have. Then the laboratory directorate will review the proposed ratings and they give me the final approval. That will happen on August 13th. So then once I get the final approval from the directorate, I will go ahead and I announce that, let everybody know. You can go ahead and release your reviews, supervisors, then have a deadline to complete discussions with employees no later than September 1st. Once the discussions happen, we lock everything down. Then we do the ATRIS uploads. That'll happen. Basically, it's going to be happening over the Labor Day weekend. At that point, I believe that's when comp will kind of step in. You have your merit process going into that area. So that's for Karen's area. So I'm not going to really talk about it in this meeting. At this point, at the end of the month, we submit the annual completion report to DOE. And that's when they take a look to see that we've 100% completed. Usually what it is, we have to just let them know if we have, like we have folks say that are in LOA, we're not going to have 100% completion, but we know what exactly where it stands. And these reviews do need to be followed up once the person returns from LOA. So that's how the process runs basically. And I'm going to go to the next thing, which is going to be the HR performance management website. So right now, this is the restricted area here that most of you folks will be working in, is that little white area there. The other part of the website really kind of belongs to Rachel and her area. So if you have any kind of comments or suggestions for the front, I call it the front end of the website, because this is kind of employee facing and supervisor facing. You can speak to, I think it's going to be Aditi in Rachel's area. So for now, I'm going to end the show and I'm going to go over to the website. And hopefully I've incorporated some things that you folks have been asking for. I actually got to learn how to do the website myself. So anyway, if you notice off to the side here on the left-hand side, it's shortened dramatically than what it used to be. So I tried to do is get this cleaned up and to get it so that it's a little bit more efficient and it's easier, a little bit more user-friendly and easier to use. So here under roles and responsibilities, it lays everything out. What the HR field staff role is, senior compensation, which is myself, ATRIS consultant, everybody's role and responsibility. And if you see something in here, you see, like, for instance, we'll click on supervisors. What do? They write reviews, they solicit performance feedback, they record the performance rating. And again, if you see something in here, it's like, well, I really would like to know the role or responsibility of, I don't know, an HR assistant maybe. We can add to this. It's not a difficult thing to do. So the next area we have is our key process terms. These are some terms that you'll hear a lot about in PMP. For instance, we talk about Google Docs. What's that about? So here's a technology tool that provides some automation of the forms. The Google Docs system used at the lab has been designed by IT for this particular annual process. It's a temporary tool that will be replaced in a few years after the new HR information system. Workday was not implemented after all. So some of this stuff could use a little bit of updating. But this gives you at least an idea. We talk about LOA, role accounts, what does that mean? And again, if you guys have suggestions that you'd like to have another term added here, we can easily add it. Here, adding a new HR division partner or a division process owner, DPO. This is a little form that I've added in here that you can actually fill out. And all you have to do is put in the requester name, your email, the employee who you want to be a DPO, what is their role. And all of this will be put together in an Excel spreadsheet that Nina and I will be checking on a daily basis once we really, once things really get moving, but we'll be checking it. You can give us a little nudge on the shoulder too with an email. But this, once you get everything in this little form here, then at the end, division supporting, any questions or comments, and then you just hit submit. And then we'll have all the information that we need to get somebody set up. This is our division process owner contact list. This is something I update every year. This is current right now. So everybody that we have on the division process owner contact list is listed in here. And then this is the next part that's really kind of cool, the division process owner guidance and procedures. What I've done is I've broken it out. A few of you have asked me in the past, can we break this out by, by the process and the steps that we use? And I really thought about it. And I thought, you know what, that would make it so much more easier to find the information. So I've broken it out into 4 phases. Or phase 1 is the timeline and the pre-setup, which is January through March, which is where we are right now. The next phase 2 is the Google app setup, which is going to be April through May. So that's coming up right behind us. Phase 3 is the PMP launch, which I'm saying is June through July. And then phase 4 will be the PMP closeout. So these are links. So if we click on phase 1 right now, here's our timeline and pre-setup. Every one of these phases has an area to focus on. So right now, these are the areas that you want to focus on. You want to confirm your DPOs. We want to start filling in checklists, attend this meeting right now, begin identifying your PMP eligible population. And then again, at the end, we're going to have a roundtable meeting, which will happen, I think it's next month. So in here, we also have a bit of the timeline calendar. The meeting we have right now that we just saw some of the slides, I've already posted them here. This is a training that we had last year, the roundtable training. So I don't have too much as far as what the launch in phase 1 is. So let's go over here and see what does phase 2 have. Okay, a lot more to say in phase 2. We have also, again, areas to focus on. I always start with that. We have our Google application setup, changing supervisors in the same division, adding or removing. These are things that kind of happen during the Google app setup. So I took all of that information that we had and I really tried to bucket it into areas that we would be working on at that particular time, division transfers and so forth. So areas to focus on, again, we start with, these are things that you should be doing, attend the PMP roundtable, performance management, the deadline to enter employee status changes. So we also have, here's a setup. There's also in here, another setup timeline. So when you get to this point, you can start looking at this. All this information in this area just talks about the setup, the tracking sheet, spreadsheet, how it works. And we'll have other meetings going forward that I'll go into a lot more detail about this, but this can give you kind of a flavor, especially if you're new. This is a good area to kind of come in here and poke around. So these are all the things that, again, that have to do with setup. Then we go into the launch. And this is still kind of, I'm still kind of working on it too. So there's areas, by all means, again, give me suggestions. I'm totally open to it. We don't have too much going on here. PMP launch. I think this is like a notification I had sent out. Then we go to the closeout, which we have a lot. And these are all the areas that have to do with closeout. Again, areas to focus on, verifying ratings, ATRIS upload, changes during upload period, after ATRIS upload, locking in ratings. So this goes into a lot of details that have to do with the process. So everything to do with the process is going to be in this area, the division process owner guidance and procedures. Next is calendars, which we've had before. We have two different kind of flavors of calendars. One is a high level at a glance calendar. So really depending on how you want to look at the calendar, they're all the same dates. Some have a little bit more detail. This one here, process timeline, it starts talking a little bit more after the launch. The high level timeline at a glance, it kind of covers a little bit of everything. It talks about Google Docs being shared and so forth. So those are the two calendars we have there. We also have this quick summary, just gives you the hard dates. Timeline overview, which I showed you in the earlier part of the meeting. So the identical calendars there. And then this other calendar is really cool. I think we had it in the past and I lost it and I found it again. This is an area I actually found myself using a lot. This is a live FY PMP calendar from Google Docs. And Nina was so kind to help, basically to help populate it. So everything in here that you need to know is going on with PMP, you can look at this calendar. And then also we talk about in here, it tells you how to add it to your own calendar. And we'll go a little bit more into that at the end of this presentation. But this is something I found really super useful because it's just like, okay, March, this is what's going on. So we have deadlines in here. We have the meetings in here. Basically, a lot of this stuff is from our high level timeline calendar. So that's it for calendars and it's all under there. And again, as far as with our videos and all that, each video or recording is going to be held within the phase that it happens. So you don't have to go, just digging through all of the videos or all of the slides to look for an area that you just want to, kind of focus in on. So the other area here is our HR division partner. This area is really HR division partner focused. So we're talking about the employee review requirements, HR field procedures, probationary. There you go, Latanja. We have a little thing here about probation. We can actually beef this area up, and I'm kind of thinking maybe Marcia, we can sit down and talk about this one because there's a lot of questions that come up about the probationary time frame, and this would be a good area that we can give some guidance.
For sure.
Yeah, so yeah, because I know every year it comes up and it's like, you know what, maybe we should just document it and put it in for prosperity's sake.
So Pat, can I just say something? So where it comes up with me is when the DPOs are looking at the Google Sheets, right? And making the determination from, who is still within their probationary time or just about to be done and making the distinction, right?
Okay.
Like you just answered, should they do a self-assessment or not? Right. So, and it's all about the timing because sometimes they come really close and then, it's not clear. So that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's good though, because I think you're not the only person with that question. Hi, Natasha.
The one question too that came up that I was having a hard time following just because I'm not steeped in it like HR is the question of when you're on probation, what's the status of, do you have to have a rating in the system itself in our PMP system? So that's where I found it got quite confusing last year.
Okay, yeah, because I think we talked about that in here. Let's see. Right here, it tells you, utilizing probationary review, you should set the review status as complete rather than ineligible. They should have a rating, but there's only one rating that they can have. Because it's basically, it used to be valuable. I think now it's like strong performer. I forgot the actual rating.
Solid performance.
Yes.
Could Might you be able to add that specifically, that
In
the
here?
rating, yeah, that the
Okay.
rating, because that's where it was, seemed to be confusing, and Dita may be able to speak more to it.
Okay, because I'm thinking this right here, I took a look at this and it's like every
Yeah.
year we go through this, so let's put it in here.
Yeah, that would be
And
great.
I
Thank
think
you.
that would be good for everybody.
Thanks
So
a lot.
yeah, no problem. We'll do that, Natasha. Let's see, because what else do we have? Special employee status circumstances. So everything in here, this, oh, also here, another one, probationary reviews. So it's also within here. So, and this goes into a lot more detail about what should happen or not happen for probationary review. So again, this is more HR kind of driven, this little area. The other area is more process driven. So you guys can pop around back and forth, but yeah, I think we should have better clarity in there. So hopefully this helps you guys a little bit better getting through this. Again, a lot of the information was here, but maybe it wasn't organized real well, so that you couldn't really find it. You had to really dig through it. So this here is how to contact us. Again, PMP support at lbl.gov is for you have an issue really kind of specific to your area. It's just going to come to me, Luis and Dina, the whole group. Everybody is not involved in it. It could be a confidential situation, or it's just something that you don't need to have everybody in the group know. GDocs automation is more of a group, hey, this is a problem, maybe you guys might be able to help. It's something that maybe other people have experienced, and you want to put it out there to the whole group. And a lot of the folks in the group there, I have to say, you guys have helped a lot, especially some of the newer folks that they're not sure. You've given them some really good guidance. And then, of course, the divisional Google Docs related issues would be to your DPO. And I added one last thing here is suggestions. I have a little suggestion box. So if you guys want to pop in there, it just says next, just open it up, write whatever you want to write in there, and then hit submit. And I want to start collecting that. So it'd be really helpful if you guys could also put things in there that we can do, whether it be the website or the process. So any kind of suggestions is helpful there. So any questions on that?
So are you going to put the link to the site? Is it?
It's the same site that you guys.
Oh, it is?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, I just spruced it up and gave it some paint and kind of modernized it a little bit. And so let me know. I mean, give me your feedback on it. If you guys, you like it better, if it's more helpful, because again, I know it was really difficult to sometimes find things within the site. So the other thing that you guys all have access to is the FY21 PMP calendar in Google Docs. So what you do is you can go into my calendars, you can search for it, and then you can have it turned on, and will show up in my area anyway. It shows up gray. So I can look at the very top, it'll just say, something's coming up, some kind of milestone. All the things that you saw in the website that are in that Google Calendar they're all populated within that calendar. So you can have the calendar there, you can go to the website. There's all kinds of different places to find out what deadlines, where to find them. And plus, me, I'll be sending my notifications. So any questions? No? Well, I am looking forward to everybody, all of us having a good year this year. And again, thank you all for coming to the presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat. It looks good.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.